There are things in this universe that do not destroy, they simply unmake. No explosion, no shockwave, no elegantly expanding cloud of debris catching the light of neighboring stars. Just presence and then the clean, absolute absence of everything that was ever there. That is what humanity saw when it turned its instruments toward the coordinates of Kepler-442 and found nothing, not a dead star, not a collapsed system, not even the ghost of a gravitational signature. A star that had burned for 6 billion years was gone, as though it had never been permitted to exist in the first place. Astronomers called it an anomaly. Then Gliese 667 vanished. Then HD 40307. Then 7 more in the span of 14 months, each disappearance more precise than the last, each absence more total, more deliberate, more terrifying in its surgical perfection. The universe does not clean up after itself, but something else does. And when humanity's greatest minds overlaid the coordinates of every vanished system onto a single star map and drew the line connecting them, the room went silent in a way that no room full of scientists ever goes silent. The line was perfect, it was straight, and it was pointing with the patience of something ancient and incomprehensible directly at the sun. Welcome to Beyond Impossible, the channel where humanity refuses to be a footnote in someone else's story. We do not come here to watch civilization surrender. We come here to witness what happens when a species decides that extinction is simply not on the agenda, when human ingenuity, courage, and the raw refusal to accept the unacceptable collide with the most impossible forces the cosmos can produce. Tonight we stand at the edge of the greatest crisis our species has ever faced. Not a war we chose, not a disaster we caused. Something older than our civilization, something operating on a scale that makes our greatest achievements feel like candlelight against the dark, has drawn a line across the Milky Way. 31 star systems gone, erased, reclaimed by a process so vast and so precise it does not even leave dust behind. And the line does not stop, it does not curve, it does not deviate. It comes with the certainty of mathematics and the indifference of deep time, straight toward everything we have ever built and everyone we have ever loved. This is the story of what humanity did about it. The year is 2287, and humanity has not slept well in 3 decades. Ever since the Meridian Array, a network of quantum-entangled observatories stretched across the outer rim of the solar system, first logged the disappearance of Kepler-442, the scientific community had operated under a quiet, creeping dread that no press release or governmental reassurance had ever fully managed to suppress. In the beginning, they called it the silence, a poetic name for an incomprehensible phenomenon. By 2271, when the deletion rate accelerated to 1 star system every 11 weeks, they stopped calling it anything poetic at all. The ISV Ardent Horizon was humanity's answer, not a weapon, because no one yet knew what to aim at, and not a rescue vessel, because there was nothing left to rescue. She was a deep field reconnaissance ship, the most sophisticated instrument of human curiosity ever assembled, crewed by 31 specialists selected from every scientific and military discipline humanity could marshal. Her mission was singular and terrifying in its simplicity. Get close enough to the deletion front to observe the next erasure in real time, gather whatever data the universe would permit, and transmit everything back to Earth before whatever was doing this noticed her. Commander Yale Doran stood at the forward observation deck as the Ardent Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light transit and the star field resolved around them. She was 53 years old, a veteran of the Europa deep drilling crisis and the Mars atmospheric collapse of 2251, a woman who had built her career on the premise that every problem had a solution if you were willing to look at it without flinching. She was looking now. The coordinates ahead of them corresponded to the Tau Ceti system, a sun-like star 11 light-years from Earth, home to 5 confirmed planets, 2 of them bearing primitive atmospheric chemistry, that had tantalized astrobiologists for 2 centuries. According to the Meridian Array's predictive modeling, Tau Ceti had between 19 and 23 days before the pattern reached it. Dr. Soren Mackay, the ship's lead astrophysicist, pulled up the deletion corridor on the holographic display and said nothing for a long moment. The map was not subtle. 31 vanished systems, each one a clean coordinate, each one a point on a line so geometrically precise it could only have been intentional. The line passed through the galactic midplane without deviation, unaffected by gravitational interference, dark matter density variance, or the complex orbital mechanics that governed everything else in the galaxy. Whatever was moving along that line did not interact with the universe the way the universe interacted with itself. It moved through physical law the way a blade moves through water, without resistance, without acknowledgement, without care. "We're 19 light days from the last confirmed deletion," Mackay said finally. "If the interval holds, we have just under 3 weeks." Doran nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on the place where Tau Ceti burned quietly, obliviously, against the dark. 31 systems gone, 400 years until Earth, and humanity had sent 31 people to find out why. The first thing Commander Doran ordered was silence, not the silence of inaction, but the silence of absolute sensor discipline. Every active emission from the ardent horizon was shut down within the hour of their arrival. No radar pings, no navigational transponder pulses, no gravitational mapping beams. If something was moving through this galaxy with the precision of a scalpel and the patience of geology, she was not going to announce their presence with the electromagnetic equivalent of a flare gun. The ship ran dark, drinking in data passively, letting the universe speak without interrupting it. What the universe said was deeply unsettling. Dr. Mackay's team ran the sensor logs from the Meridian Array against their own close-range readings and found the same result every time. In the hours before each deletion, there was nothing. No precursor radiation, no gravitational distortion, no dark energy fluctuation, no quantum decoherence signature in the local vacuum state, no ripple in the cosmic microwave background. The systems simply existed and then they did not. The boundary between presence and absence was not an event, it was a condition. As though reality itself had been quietly informed that these coordinates were no longer required and had complied without argument. Lieutenant Commander Priya Osai, the ship's quantum systems engineer, proposed the first serious hypothesis on day 4. If the deletions left no physical residue and produced no detectable energy output, then the process could not be thermodynamic in nature. The universe's most fundamental bookkeeping rule, that energy could neither be created nor destroyed, appeared to be going unconsulted. Osai's working theory was that whatever was responsible operated at the level of quantum information erasure, effectively rewriting the boundary conditions of spacetime itself at a target location, collapsing the probability wave functions of every particle within a defined volume simultaneously and completely. Not destroying matter, deleting the permission for it to exist. The theory was elegant. It was also, as Dr. Mackay pointed out with characteristic bluntness, completely beyond any human technological framework by a margin so vast it was almost meaningless to measure. Humanity's most advanced energy manipulation systems, the fusion torch drives of the ardent horizon herself, the orbital antimatter refineries at Jupiter, the experimental frame drag inductors being tested near Proxima, were children's toys against a process that apparently rewrote spacetime's operating parameters without leaving a receipt. On day 9, they caught the first anomaly. It was faint, a single wavelength coherence pattern in the gamma ray background that Mackay's algorithm flagged as statistically improbable. It lasted 4.3 seconds and then vanished. But it was directional, it had a source, and the source was not Tau Ceti. It was something between Tau Ceti and the last deletion point, sitting in what should have been empty interstellar space, radiating nothing else, betraying itself only in that single momentary flicker of ordered light in a universe that did not produce ordered light by accident. Doran stared at the coordinates on the display for a long time. Then she said quietly, "Plot an intercept course, dark running, no active systems." Nobody objected. Nobody slept much that night either. They found it on day 13, and finding it did not make anything better. The object, if object was even the correct word for something that occupied space without appearing to interact with it, was approximately 40 kilometers across and perfectly spherical, a geometry so exact it made the mathematics of its own existence seem like a deliberate provocation. It emitted no heat, it reflected no light. The only reason the ardent horizon's passive sensors could resolve it at all was the subtle gravitational lensing effect it produced on the star field behind it, a slight, precise bending of distant starlight around its perimeter, as though space itself was politely stepping aside to accommodate it. Dr. Mackay called it the interlocutor. The name stuck because no one had a better one, and because something about it felt less like a machine and more like a representative. Doran ordered a holding position at 2,000 kilometers and convened every department head in the ship's command center. The debate that followed was the most important and most frightening conversation in human history, conducted in hushed voices in a room that smelled of recycled air and cold coffee. Osai argued for an attempt at communication, a structured mathematical signal broadcast on the same single wavelength coherence frequency they had detected on day 9, a way of knocking on the door before it decided to open on its own. Dr. Amara Voss, the ship's xenolinguistics specialist, had spent the 9 days of transit constructing a framework for first contact signaling based on prime number sequences and universal physical constants, the oldest and most honest language humanity knew how to speak. Mackay argued against it with equal force, pointing out that something capable of erasing star systems had presumably already detected them and chosen not to act, and that introducing an active emission into that calculation was the precise equivalent of a mouse tapping on the baseboards of a house that had not yet decided whether to call an exterminator. Doran listened to both arguments and then made the decision that commanders make when every option carries catastrophic risk and doing nothing is itself a choice. They would signal, once, cleanly, and then wait. Voss transmitted the sequence at 300 ship time, primes to 1,000, followed by the mathematical constants for the speed of light, Planck's constant, and the gravitational parameter of the sun. 12 seconds of structured coherence against the silence of interstellar space. Then nothing. For 6 hours, the interlocutor gave no response, and the crew of the Ardent Horizon existed in a state of suspended dread that no amount of professional training made bearable. The response, when it came, was not a signal. It was a change. The interlocutor's gravitational lensing signature shifted, subtly, precisely, measurably, in a pattern that Osai's instruments captured in full. When she ran the pattern through every analytical framework she had and found no match, she built a new one from scratch over 4 sleepless hours. What she found turned her face the color of ash. The pattern was not a greeting. It was not a question. It was a countdown, expressed in the same physical constants humanity had used to introduce itself, mapped against the deletion interval, recalculated with a new variable that had not been present in the original sequence. The new variable, as best as Osai could resolve it, represented a number, a quantity, 32, the number of star systems remaining between the current deletion front and the coordinates of Sol. And embedded within the final term of the sequence, repeated 3 times with the insistence of something that wanted to be perfectly understood, was a single, devastating clarification. The number had just been updated. It was no longer 400 years. The interval had accelerated. They had 80. 80 years changed everything. The transmission back to Earth took 11 light minutes to arrive and 11 more to confirm receipt, and in those 22 minutes of silence aboard the Ardent Horizon, something fundamental shifted in the psychological architecture of every person on the ship. 400 years had been an abstraction, a civilizational problem, a gift of time so generous it almost felt theoretical. 80 years was a human lifetime. It was parents and children. It was people alive today who would not be alive to see the outcome, and people not yet born who would inherit whatever humanity managed or failed to accomplish in the interval. Doran watched her crew absorb the recalculation and saw the moment it stopped being a mission and became something personal for every single one of them. Earth's response, when it came, was a single encoded directive from the United Earth Science Command. Do not withdraw, learn everything. It was the bravest and most terrifying order Doran had ever received, and she had received orders that sent her into the crushing darkness of Europa's subsurface ocean. She read it twice, set it down, and went back to work. Dr. Osai's team had not stopped working since the countdown revelation, operating on the hypothesis that the interlocutor had responded to their mathematical signal deliberately, that it had chosen to communicate rather than simply ignore them. She designed a second transmission aimed not at introduction, but at interrogation. Using relativistic frame drag equations and quantum entanglement probability matrices as a shared grammatical foundation, she constructed a sequence with a single embedded question, expressed in the only language she trusted to cross the conceptual distance between human cognition and whatever processed information inside that perfect dark sphere. Why? The response came in 47 minutes faster than before, as though the question had been anticipated. The gravitational lensing pattern shifted again, more complex this time, layered in ways that took Osai and Voss working in parallel 18 hours to fully decode. What they extracted was not a justification, it was not an apology, it was a classification. Humanity's solar system, along with every system that had already been deleted, had been flagged under a category that Voss spent 3 hours trying to render into any human linguistic framework before settling on the closest available approximation. Scheduled for reclamation, the deletions were not an attack, they were not a war, they were maintenance. Something so cosmologically senior to humanity that the gap in scale was nearly impossible to reason about was tidying. Clearing space, executing a process so old and so vast that the existence of technological civilizations within the affected coordinates had either not been considered or had been considered and deemed irrelevant. It was Doran who saw the opening, and she saw it in the word Voss had chosen almost by accident. Scheduled. Schedules could be contested. Schedules implied process, and process implied the existence of a framework, and frameworks, no matter how ancient, no matter how vast, were structures built by minds. And minds, in Doran's considerable experience, could be made to reconsider. She ordered Osai to build a third transmission. Not an introduction, not a question, a filing, formal, structured, precise. Using every mathematical and physical constant at their disposal as a legal grammar, they would do something no species in the galaxy had apparently ever thought or dared to attempt. They would contest the deletion order. They would argue in the universal language of physics and logic that humanity's solar system should be removed from the reclamation schedule on the grounds that it contained something the schedule had failed to account for, a civilization that knew it was about to be deleted and had found a way to say so. It took 4 days to compose and 6 minutes to transmit. Then the ardent horizon went quiet again, and 31 human beings waited to find out whether the universe had a process for objections. The interlocutor went dark for 11 days, not silent, dark. Its gravitational lensing signature vanished completely on the 3rd day after humanity's filing transmission, as though the sphere had simply stopped occupying space in any measurable sense, and the ardent horizon held its position in the absolute black of interstellar space, with the particular discipline of people who understood that moving was probably worse than staying, and staying was already nearly unbearable. Rations were calculated, systems were checked and rechecked, people slept in short intervals and woke up reaching for their consoles. On the seventh day, Dr. Voss began composing letters to her children on Earth that she never intended to send, because she could not decide whether hope or honesty was the more important thing to put in them. On the eighth day, Tau Ceti vanished. There was no event. There was no process visible to any instrument aboard the ship. One moment the star burned 11 light-years distant, a warm and ancient presence that humanity had watched for centuries, and then it was gone, coordinates occupied, then unoccupied. The gravitational influence it had exerted on its planetary family simply ceasing. The 5 worlds that had orbited it now drifting into the dark on whatever terminal trajectories the deletion's instant removal of their sun's mass had assigned them. The interval had accelerated again. The Ardent Horizon's updated modeling now placed Sol's reclamation at 53 years. The filing had not stopped anything. It had not even slowed it. Mackay delivered the revised timeline in a voice stripped of everything except the information itself, and the command center received it the same way. Doran sat with it for 4 minutes by the clock on the bulkhead, and then stood up and made a decision that she had been circling since day one without letting herself land on it. If the filing had failed to pause the process, then the process was still running. And if the process was still running, then the interlocutor, wherever it had gone, was still executing it, which meant it was not gone. It was present somewhere that their instruments could not resolve, doing something their frameworks could not model. And the only way to change an outcome in a system you could not fully observe was to change the input the system could not ignore. She told Osai to reconfigure the ship's entire power output, drives, life support reserves, every non-critical system, into a single directed gamma-ray burst transmission on the coherence frequency. Not a message this time. A proof. Osai looked at her for a long moment and said, "That will drain our return capacity." Doran said, "I know." Osai held her gaze another second, then turned to her console without another word, because she understood, they all understood, that there was a version of this where the Ardent Horizon did not go home, and that version had been on the table since the moment they left. The proof took Voss and Osai working without sleep for 31 hours to construct. It was not a plea. It was not an appeal to mercy, because they had no evidence that the process that was deleting star systems had a framework for mercy. It was a mathematical and informational demonstration, structured in the grammar the interlocutor had itself established, that the solar system flagged for reclamation contained an anomaly not present in any previously deleted system. It contained a civilization that had detected the reclamation process, identified its executor, established communication, formulated a logical objection, and was now providing empirical evidence of its own cognitive complexity in real time as the deletion front advanced. The argument was not spare us because we matter. The argument was spare us because we are the first variable in your process that has ever talked back, and a process this precise was surely designed by something precise enough to understand that an anomaly in your data deserves examination before deletion. They transmitted it at 600 ship time, burning everything they had that wasn't keeping them alive. Then the lights went to minimum power and 31 people sat in the near dark and waited, 3 light years from the nearest human being, for the universe to decide whether they had said anything worth hearing. The interlocutor reappeared at 314 ship time, 14 hours after the transmission, materializing back into gravitational detectability with the same absolute absence of process that defined everything it did. No transition, no approach vector, simply absent and then present, sitting at 2,000 kilometers exactly as though it had never left. Doran was awake. She suspected everyone was awake. The ship's internal sensors showed not a single crew member in a sleep cycle. 31 human beings arranged throughout the ardent horizon in various postures of vigilance, united by the particular stillness of people who have done everything they can do and are now waiting for the universe to respond to it. The response began 12 minutes after reappearance and lasted for 6 hours, the longest and most complex gravitational lensing transmission the interlocutor had produced. Layered in mathematical structures so dense that Osa and Voss worked in tandem decoding it in real time, their voices low and precise in the quiet of the command center, calling out terms and constants and relational values, while Mackay cross-referenced against every framework in the ship's scientific library. What emerged piece by piece over those 6 hours was not a pardon. It was something that had no exact human equivalent, something between an amendment, an annotation, and an acknowledgement. The reclamation process, as best as they could render it in human conceptual language, operated under a parametric assumption that had been in place since its original execution order. That the coordinates it was processing contained no entities capable of observing, identifying, and formally contesting the process itself. The assumption was not cruelty. It was an efficiency parameter, built into a system so old that the civilization which had designed it may no longer exist in any form humanity would recognize. And humanity, by doing exactly what humanity does, by refusing to go quietly, by insisting on being heard, by constructing a logical argument in a foreign grammar and transmitting it at the cost of their own safe return, had triggered a conditional the process had carried dormant for longer than the sun had been burning. A review condition, Saul's coordinates had been flagged, the deletion was suspended pending assessment. Doran read the final decoded output twice and then set it down on the console with a steadiness she would not have been able to explain to anyone who had not spent a career learning to hold themselves together in the moments when everything depended on it. Suspended, not cancelled, not guaranteed, but suspended, pulled from the active queue and placed under review by whatever vast and ancient administrative intelligence sat above the process that had been erasing the galaxy's furniture without checking whether anyone was sitting on it. It was not victory, it was the right to make the case for victory, extended to a species that had earned it by being exactly what it was. The ardent horizon began its long, low-power return to Earth on reserve drive capacity, a journey that would take 14 months and require 3 crew members to remain in induced hibernation in rotation to preserve life support margins. They transmitted everything, every decoded exchange, every sensor log, every mathematical framework Osa and Voss had constructed, in a continuous tight beam burst to the Meridian Array, ensuring that even if the ship did not make it home, the knowledge would. It made it home, all 31 of them. In the years that followed, humanity did not celebrate in the way it celebrated victories, because this was not a victory yet. It was a stay of execution purchased with courage and mathematics and the willingness of 31 people to burn their ride home for one more transmission. Earth's greatest minds turned the decoded interlocutor grammar into a new field of science. Diplomatic frameworks were constructed in languages built from physics rather than words. Children born in the years after the ardent horizon's return grew up studying the transmission logs the way previous generations had studied constitutions and declarations, as the documents that defined what their civilization had chosen to be when the alternative was silence. The deletion front did not advance. Decades passed and the line held still and the review did not conclude, and humanity kept talking, kept transmitting, kept refining its argument, kept demonstrating in every transmission that the anomaly the interlocutor had flagged was not a glitch in the data, but a feature of the universe that deserved to remain in it. The cosmos had always been vast and indifferent and ancient beyond reckoning, but indifference, it turned out, was not the same as immovable, and ancient did not mean it had heard everything yet. Humanity had 400 years of expected silence converted into 80, and 80 converted into a question, and a question converted into the most important conversation any species had ever initiated. It had done it the only way it knew how, by refusing, at every escalation, at every reduction of odds, at every moment when silence would have been easier, to stop speaking. There is a certain kind of courage that does not announce itself. It does not arrive with banners or battle cries or the dramatic certainty of a species that knows it will win. It arrives quietly in the middle of the night, aboard a ship running on minimum power 3 light years from home, in the hands of an engineer who hasn't slept in 31 hours and a commander who already knows the cost of the next decision before she makes it. It arrives in the moment a civilization looks at the line being drawn across its galaxy, clean, surgical, absolute, and decides that the only acceptable response is to pick up whatever it has and write back. Humanity has never been the largest presence in the universe. It has never been the oldest, the most powerful, or the most technologically advanced. What humanity has always been, in every dark corridor and collapsing system and impossible odds it has ever faced, is the species that did not accept the premise that it was finished. The universe is under no obligation to be fair. It is under no obligation to notice us, to accommodate us, or to leave room for us in its incomprehensible machinery. But it noticed us this time, because we made it notice. Because 31 people burned their way home on the mathematical equivalent of a firmly worded letter to something older than stars, and the something older than stars paused and read it. That is what we are, that is what we have always been. Not the strongest signal in the cosmos, but the most persistent one. The one that keeps transmitting even when the power is almost gone, even when the odds have been recalculated into something that reasonable people would call hopeless, even when the silence on the other end has lasted 11 days, and a star you have watched your whole life just ceased to exist. We transmit anyway, we argue anyway, we build the grammar and compose the proof and press send anyway, because the alternative, the quiet, the acceptance, the dignified surrender to a process that never bothered to check whether anyone was home, has never once been in our nature. The galactic purge is not over, the review has not concluded. The line is still drawn and the question is still open and the answer is still being written, one transmission at a time, by a civilization that refused to be a footnote in someone else's maintenance log. The story is not finished, it never is with us. This has been beyond impossible, where humanity's greatest chapter is always the one still being written. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of what we are capable of when we refuse to accept the unacceptable, then subscribe, stay close, and come back. Because the universe is vast, the challenges are real, and there is no shortage of impossible things left for humanity to conquer. We will see you at the next one.